What's going on, guys? In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the one thing that can save America. It's going to be a little bit different episode. I got a few notes down here, but mainly I'm just going to talk off the dome, see what comes up. But really wanted to talk to you about the idea of personal responsibility and how this is really the only thing that's going to save America. Now, if you've been watching lately, the Democratic National Convention's going on, and I've seen some of it, and honestly, it should just be renamed the Victim Conference, right? Like, nobody takes any responsibility for their lives. Everything is Trump's fault. They just it's like the blacks have been oppressed, the transgenders have been oppressed. It's just the oppression Olympics, right? Everybody's been oppressed. Michelle Obama is sitting here talking about her oppression from a multi-million-dollar mansion. She was literally the first lady of the U.S., but she's oppressed, right? It's like constantly blaming somebody, and it's really not even like a political thing because Republicans do it too. And if you look at the U.S. right now, we've got over $24 trillion in debt. Now, why do we have so much debt? The reason being, and Aristotle talked about this as well, and I'll get to that in just a second, but the reason that we have so much debt is because people aren't willing to make unpopular decisions, because unpopular decisions politically cause you to lose an election. So nobody's going to tell the American people they need personal responsibility, right? So what happens is the Democrats campaign on entitlements, right? You need free this, you deserve free this, you're entitled to all this free stuff. They get into office, they increase the spending on a program so they can give free stuff because that's politically popular, but they don't raise taxes much because that's not politically popular. Then the Republicans come into office and they want to lower taxes and lower spending, but they don't lower the spending because that's unpopular because people have to lose the free stuff they're getting, but they slash the taxes. So what happens is when the Democrats come in, we spend more without earning more money, and then when the Republicans come in, we spend the same, but we earn less. So the debt just keeps rising because nobody has the balls to tell the American people that they need to take responsibility for their lives. Like, think about Social Security, for example. The reason we have Social Security is because the government took over the responsibility of saving for retirement for people. That's literally what it's there for. Our entire checks, year after year after year, we are putting money into a system that takes our money so that we have a retirement, because the government basically doesn't trust us to have enough personal responsibility to save for retirement ourselves. And the irony is the government doesn't have enough personal responsibility to save for our retirements because the system is completely insolvent. And this is a thing, again, George W. Bush in 2006, I believe it was, he tried to address Social Security. He wanted to reform the Social Security system because he knew it was a problem. Like, I'm not a big fan of George W. Bush, but this is something he knew this was an issue. We needed to do something about the Social Security system. And you know what happened? At the time when he started pushing this issue, the Republicans had the presidency, and I believe they had both houses of Congress. He started campaigning on this, let's reform Social Security, and immediately the Democrats took over at least one of the houses of Congress. Why? Because nobody wants to lose their free stuff, right? Everybody's voting for their own sense of entitlement, and they're not going to take responsibility. I'm not going to save my money. I'm going to let the government give me free money. That's the philosophy, right? And this goes for all other sorts of things. Now, what I was talking about with Aristotle just a minute ago is Aristotle said he didn't like democracy. And the reason he said he didn't like democracy was because he felt that ultimately people just voted for their personal interests without being informed. And he thought that they turned into these popularity contests where everyone was just giving away free stuff. Does that sound familiar? That sounds like America right now. And he believed that the best form of government was a monarchy with a good king. And the problem with a monarchy that has a good king is usually you have a bad son that comes after that king. Just look at Marcus Aurelius, followed up by his son Commodus. Commodus is the one from Gladiator, if you've seen Gladiator. But anyways, so I'm not saying I'm a fan of a monarchy. I think democracy's great, but we should look to what our founders talked about. And our founders talked about the importance of Americans having personal responsibility and being informed in their government and taking accountability for their lives. You can't have a system where the people vote if they're uninformed. Now, not all of this is our fault. I'm talking about personal responsibility, and now I'm shifting blame a little bit, which is kind of funny. But, the media doesn't do a good job of giving people information, so everyone's living in a bubble. but you could still look at it through the lens of your own responsibility for your life and understand that what America offers people, what I think a proper government offers people, is it protects your rights so that you can pursue your own dreams, not give you everything and tell you you have no responsibility for your lives. That rips the soul out of you. I mean, this is the reason Jordan Peterson became so popular, is because he talked about the idea that you need to take responsibility for your life. Responsibility gives you meaning in your life. The reason that these people are rioting in the streets right now is because they feel like it gives them meaning. If you have a meaning in your life, right, like they don't have, most of these people, if you look at, like, recently I saw 2 Harvard graduate corporate lawyers got arrested as Antifa rioters, right? Like, these are people who have everything handed to them on a silver spoon, talking about overthrowing the government and all this stupid stuff. Why are they doing it? Because they've never had to struggle for anything in their life. They got safe spaces in college, they got handouts from their parents, and now here they are rioting on the streets as Antifa people. This is not surprising. They need something to, like, part of being a human is you want that adversary. You want that thing to go up against, because that gives you the meaning and gives you the drive in your life. So we live in a society where nobody's taking personal responsibility. You've got to blame somebody else. They've had everything handed to them. What do you get? You get Antifa type people, right? And so we really, like, there's a guy named Alexei de Tocqueville, I believe that's his name. He went around America. He was a French guy. Right when America was just formed, a few years into its being a country, he went around America and he wrote a book called, I believe it was Democracy in America. And he mainly talked about the fact that Americans were so personally responsible. They were informed on their government, they had personal responsibility for their lives, and they believed that the government was not giving them their rights. They were God-given rights protected by the government, and that their responsibility for their lives was to go on their own adventure, the call to adventure. And he also talked a lot about the community effect of America. America didn't look for the government to provide for them, they looked to the community and to themselves, right? This is a good example of, like, your own life. Like, if your boy was really in trouble, like he needed money or something like that, and you could help him, you'd help him, right? He's your friend. And you trust your friend, and you want to see people around you do well. This is the idea of the old school America. Rather than the government being responsible for cleaning up all your problems, you relied on yourself and the people around you to help take care of you. Like, this is why churches were so integral to the early American life, because it was the community center, and it helped take care of the downtrodden when situations like that occurred. So guys, I'm saying all this to say that no candidate, no political issue can save you if you won't save yourself. Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp. He later became a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatric, like, he wrote a lot of books on psychology. And in concentration camps, he watched his whole family get killed by the Nazis, right? But one thing he wrote was that he realized the one thing no one could take from him was his right to choose his own attitude, and he could choose to have a good attitude, and that having a good attitude always works out better than having a bad attitude. This is a guy who went through the worst of circumstances. He certainly went through worse circumstances than entitled socialists that are running around America talking about how awful it is, while, like, America is the most giving nation in the world. We take care of most of, like, the poor countries on the planet. It's given so much opportunity. They complain about America while tweeting about it from their iPhone. Like, that's the old joke, right? These people never had to go through anything, but they're not choosing the right attitude, and they're not taking personal responsibility for their lives. And again, Republicans need to do the same thing too. Republicans tend to blame Democrats for everything, or blame the government for everything that doesn't work out in their life, and, like, the opposite side of things. Just take responsibility for your life and just stop pushing it off. It's so easy to push accountability off to somebody else. You should really, when this comes up, contemplate your resentment, because usually when you're resenting somebody, it's kind of like a deflection from your own feeling of guilt about a situation. So, like, a lot of people who are poor and take money from the government, they resent the government, or they resent whoever they're getting the money from, because in a way it makes them look bad. It pushes this guilt onto them. So rather than deal with their own personal guilt and take responsibility, they resent the other person. And this is, like, it would be really wise for you, if you're somebody who does feel like you're not taking enough responsibility for your life, to look at where you're resenting people, because this will show you where you need to take more responsibility for your life. But guys, I just want to wrap this video up by saying that there's really really no political candidate out there. Obviously, I have my preferences that I'm very strong on, but there is no political candidate that can solve your life for you if you're not going to take personal responsibility for your life. If you got something out of this video, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. If you want me to make more current events type topics, let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.